Welcome to We Are Napier, the podcast that shares alumni stories, puts resilient skills in context, and helps to prepare you for a changing world. My name's Dave Jarrold. I'll be your host for this episode, and I'm joined today by musician, singer-songwriter, podcaster, and so much more, Gus Harrower. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this chat. I always like these conversations, and just stop me if I'm spraffing too much.
Absolutely not. I'm going to say there's a lot that you've been involved in, so I'm going to dive straight into it because I'm really keen to kind of share your experiences with the students that are going to be listening. So, can I get you to kick us off and just tell us a bit about your world and all of the stuff that you're involved in?
So I am primarily, I like to think of myself primarily as a musician. I am a session musician. I play with artists in and around Scotland. They can be pop artists, folk, just anyone that will have me. Anyone who's a keys player or a guitarist. Alongside that, a few years ago, I accidentally, I would say, fell into the community music world, and I'm working a lot with people living with dementia and using music as a tool to bring a better sense of well-being and identity and belonging. And my career most these days is around those two outlets, doing my session work and then working in amongst the community, mostly dementia-friendly communities in Scotland. I work quite a lot in Fife and in Edinburgh as well, at the Eric Liddell Centre and the Capitol Theatres. So I try to get all over, but that is how I see myself. Yeah.
Excellent. It's such an interesting. I mean, music's got such a therapeutic outlet and support for all of us that love music. And I think obviously, as you say, with dementia, it's that tie to the past, isn't it, and that connection.
It really is. I think music. I was chatting to people today about this actually, and I think music has a particular thing about it that maybe other creative outlets can't quite bring, is that you hear a song and not only can it evoke movement, dancing, singing,
Mhm.
but also it takes you back to a time and a place and a feeling associated with that, whether it be good or bad. And I think that's what's so special about music. It clicks something in the brain. Of course, artwork, being creative, making things, can do that in another way, but there's something about music which it scratches an itch, I think. And it's got, I mean, everyone's got a favorite song and a feeling tied to that, and how you felt the first time you heard it, or if it reminds you of a breakup or a wedding, or any of these life experiences all have songs attached to them. I believe. I think I'm very lucky to be able to use these songs to hopefully just bring a good time to people. Today, I was chatting to you earlier. I had a tea dance. I host it's called Are You Dancing, a community tea dance event, and I play a bunch of classic hits from the 50s through to maybe the 70s, and it's just amazing to see folk get up dancing, singing along. This reminded me of so and so, and that is really special to be able to do, and I'm very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, you're so right. It's like Frank Tedder says, you've got a song for every time you've lost and every time you've won. And I think we've all got that kind of repertoire of things that connect us to points in our lives. So I'm interested in, if this was if we were doing a Marvel film and we're going to put your origin story together, what's the driver, what's the motivator that drove you to do what you're doing now, and what kind of sits behind all that for you?
I love that, my origin story. Okay, I was always into music from an early age, at school, and it was all I was really quite good at school as well. I found a course at Napier, of course, the popular music course, which I believe now is just the music course. I might be wrong, but I think it's changed since I was there. And I found that, and it was perfect. I went to view the place, met some of the great lecturers that were taking it, and I just fell in love. It was brilliant. It was also just down the road, so I could save money on digs and stay at my mum and dad's. So that was handy. But no, there was a different vibe to it, because I went and see a few places, but the contents of the course were great for me. It was songwriting focus, which I wanted to do, of course, and so I knew and I think I maybe did that in fourth or fifth year of high school. So I knew early on I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So then it was just a case for me of, once I did my fourth year exams and I didn't get great results in that, Thankfully, my mum and dad were pretty supportive of going, you're going to do music. And because it's not, I can't imagine it's a very easy thing for parents to say to a kid, it's quite a risk going into the creative arts, especially at the moment. I mean, even more so now, to be honest, than it was 8 years ago when I decided to do it. But thankfully, they believed in me, and thank goodness it's all worked out as well. But yeah, I knew early on I wanted to do it, and then it was just a case of getting what I needed to go to Napier, and yeah, that was it. The rest is history, I guess. I went to the course and loved it, and I stayed for a master's as well after that. And then through that time, of course, you're networking, you're gigging, you're meeting people, so it's all very natural. Or it was for me anyway, quite a natural progression.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's amazing. And you're right. It can be tough in the creative industries to get a start, to make it, to turn that passion into a living, and into a way to pay the rent and put food on the table. So yeah, it's a challenge.
It is. It is. I think these days you can't rely on just having the one gig or one job or whatever. To be honest, you've got to be realistic. You've got to do loads, as you see. Try and keep busy. That's mainly because, as you say, you've got bills to pay and all the rest of it. But it's also because I love what I do, and I think it's really important to add as many skills to your bow as possible, which I'm sure we'll chat a wee bit more about.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll come on to that. You're great. You're leading me into where I want to go. It's perfect. So you've mentioned that you had 2 bites of the cherry with Napier. So I'm interested. What was your Napier story like in your Napier journey? How was Napier for you?
I really enjoyed my time at Napier. Uni was. I don't think I was set on going to uni really until I came to view it. And I know I said I went to see places, but I think I just did that because I guess when you're young, you're often told you kind of need to go to uni. And especially for music, it's something that is maybe not the first thing that comes to mind when going into a career in music. But when I came to see the place and see the facilities, I loved them. I thought they were great. They were state of the art, and they still are really, really brilliant. As I say, the lecturers were fab. Got a great energy from them. The the content of the course was perfect for me. I wanted to do songwriting, which only a couple of places offered. A lot of places did composition, but I wanted to do songwriting, and there's a bit of a difference. And I loved that. I loved that there was a focus there. So yeah, that really made my heart set on Napier. And then I was, lucky enough to get in. That would have been 2016. And as I say, I still lived in Edinburgh, so I enjoyed walking up Morningside Road to get to uni. And it was fab because I was hearing all my peers talk about these artists and albums and styles of music that I hadn't listened to before. So every day walking up to uni, I'd put on a different album by someone new, something that I would never have heard before going to uni. And it was all just because I met so many different people. And that's what I think the best thing about uni, but also just Napier was. And that experience for me, meeting all these different folk who I wouldn't have met otherwise, opening my horizons up to different styles of music, but also different gigs. It was just great. That's what I loved about it, and that's what I've taken away. It's just all those great connections, and a lot of them I've still got with people and still play with, to this day. And I'm sure I will in many years to come, I hope, because they're just fantastic musicians. So it was a really positive experience. I think academically, I was by far the best on the on the course. Even in my sort of wee songwriting group, it was such a mixed bag. I don't actually think that's another thing I think is great about it. You can't even compare yourself to people in that way because what you're doing, well, in my course, was so subjective. And so everyone was making all this amazing, different, really different music. How could you compare one of my pop songs to sort of an avant-garde electronic piece? You couldn't do that. And I think that's another thing which I learned about myself, and also just about life, is don't compare yourself to folk. That's that was a really big takeaway from uni. And that's something that you don't get in school because you're doing the same syllabus and you're on the same exactly this. You're doing all the same work. So it was a really such a long-winded answer. It was a very positive journey. Met great people. Still have those connections. And it was fun. It's fun.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Yeah, absolutely. You're right. That whole thing about there's a phrase that comparison's the thief of joy. And I think you're so right. It's all about, well, what's your journey, your race, your destination? What's right for you? And when we start to compare it against other people, that's where things start to fall apart, because we don't know what other people are going through and their challenges and the resources that they've got behind them or don't have, or whatever it might be. So you're absolutely right. You just got to run your own race and see where it takes you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on, the work that I do is to support students to develop resilient skills around working as part of a team, dealing with challenges, all of the kind of soft skills or core skills that we get to develop whilst we're at university. And you've kind of highlighted a bit there as you've been talking. It's not part necessarily of a course, but it's part of the experience. And it's how we talked about passion and drive. That's my passion and my drive, is how can I support students to develop those skills so that they can maximize and make the most of their experience at Edinburgh, at Napier, but then also be prepared for the slings and arrows and the challenges that the world's going to throw at you once you move on from Napier. So I'm really interested, especially as a creative in a very volatile and challenging working environment to move into. What have you found to be the kind of resilient skills that have been most valuable for you as you've moved on from Napier and started to find your way forward?
It's a tough question because everyone is so different, and I think I'm someone that's a confident person. So going into a room of people that I don't know, I can manage. You still feel a wee bit butterflies, a bit nervous, but I think the biggest skill to have in life and to go into uni with and to come out with it's just people skills. In my industry, you might be the best at your instrument, but if the word on the street is that you're actually not the nicest person or really hard to work with, you won't get the job because people want to work with folk who they can get on with, and it's or just easy to get on with, not necessarily sharing a similar sense of humor, but just being a decent person, I think. And people skills it's one thing that is great at uni because you're meeting all these new folk for the first time on whatever course, and it is scary. But what have you got to lose by just going up and saying hello and making new friends? You might. There's nothing to lose there. There's nothing to lose, and I think that's one thing that I have. That was a bit of a journey for me. Was just having confidence in yourself to get on with people. I think you can do that in any course, and I know for some folk that it's going to be harder for whatever issues that people may be having, but it's an invaluable skill. I think it's the most valuable skill, if I'm honest, is people skills. Just being able to communicate well and get on with people. In terms of resilience, you're going to get criticism at uni in terms of your work, but you can, and I did. But it's good. It's constructive, and it's also trying to see the positives in that. Where in school, maybe your criticism is a criticism of you not being able to solve a problem, or you can't solve a problem because of how you're doing it. Where I think in uni there isn't just one solution. There's so many different ways, and you've got to find your own answer because it will be right. And I don't know if that makes any sense. I think I'm just trying to see this. In uni, there's different ways to an answer. There's way more paths than you may think. And coming out of school, you think there's only one way to an answer. There's only one way to. There's one correct answer. You're taught how to write an essay. You're taught how to structure it and everything. But in uni, there's so much self-analysis and self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more centered around the person and the individual. And I guess you've just got to be open to learning about yourself a bit and be open to changing how you approach problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just stems through life as well. You look at some simple thing and go, well, your brain just starts to change a wee bit about how you analyze issues and problems. I think it's being open to that change. Because if you go through uni being quite stubborn, and I saw it with some of my peers, maybe not accepting criticism, you just never change, and then you just don't really evolve or develop as, whether it be a musician, whether it be an artist, whether it be an accountant, whatever. You just don't evolve. So I think you just have to be open to criticism, and I think that's about being open to people telling you you're bad or people telling you you're good, and it's just people skills again. So I think it ultimately all comes out of people skills. But yeah, resilience is one that you've kind of got to be a bit resilient in a good way, though. Just, I mean, it's any feedback's good feedback in my eyes. I'd rather someone told me a problem with or something that they didn't like than something that they do like. Because again, in our industry, I'm going on, Dave. Apologies, but there's a bit of a running joke at gigs. You go to a gig, and if you're another band, the band come off and you say, "Great set, man! Great set. Really enjoyed that." That's all anyone ever says, right? And it's a joke. Ask any musician who's played, "Great set, man," and a lot of the time as well, they don't mean it. They're just saying it to be polite. I'd rather someone said to me, that was fun. Seeing that song, you should have chucked a solo in there or make that a bit longer. I would love if someone said that to me, because it means they're paying attention and actually listening and trying to better it. All that folk are trying to do is make you better. And then when people don't accept that, you're going to make it tough for yourself.
Yeah. But it's a great point.
Sorry, on you go, Dave. I'm not going to say anything more meaningful.
No, but it's a great point, and you're right. And I think especially if you're in the creative world, I think you talk about accountancy. If you get something wrong in accountancy, the feedback is you calculate that wrong. This is how to calculate it right. There is a right and a wrong. Whereas if it's something more subjective and more creative, and especially if it's creative and you put a bit of your heart and soul into it, to get that criticism can be a bit more raw. But you're right, it's the only thing that drives us forward is getting that feedback. Sometimes we talk about, if you don't have feedback, it's like practicing archery in the dark. You've got no idea if it's good, bad, or indifferent, how it's landing on people. And it's being open to it. And you talked about people skills, and I think you're right. But you also mentioned reflection, and I think that's the key thing. It's the opportunity to come to uni and to be exposed to all sorts of different experiences and people, and to use that reflection to think about yourself and what that's telling you about you, and then how you can use that self-knowledge. And I think that self-knowledge is at the core of the resilient skills. If you can understand or start to understand yourself better, because you can't do any of our training courses and say, that's it, I understand myself now. It is a lifelong pursuit. We all of us are still learning about ourselves, and we'll continue to do. And I hope that never stops, because the minute that stops, you stop growing, you stop developing, and who wants that? So yeah, it is. You're right. It's a lifelong thing, but it is all about people and about you and how you think about yourself.
And that can be such I'm amazed you managed to translate all that from my just like word vomit. But it's also, that's so fun. That's such a positive, fun experience. Like getting to meet all these people, do all this. Well, in my course, creative output. Also, alongside everything on the course, what students like. You're going out on freshers, you're going out to their flats, you're having a great time with all these people, and that's just brilliant. I think that's fun. And if you don't view it that way, that's when it gets negative. It's up to you to view it in that way, I think.
So I'll do my little plug just now. So we've developed a resilient skills program at Napier, and that's there to support students throughout their time at university and beyond. So we will put a link up in the description after this, and feel free to check that out, guys, for anyone who's not had a chance to look at that yet. Now, the other thing I want to ask you about, I'm going to get in deep into the weeds of your world now, because we're going to time this episode to go out round about, I think it's the 19th of October, which is going to be National Album Day. Now, I know you've got one album already released, and you hinted that you're working on the next. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about what you've done, but also I'm really interested in the whole kind of process of putting an album together and how that works.
Well, I've got a load of my own music online, which are in the form of singles and EPs, but I've released an album and we're about to release a second with a charity called Stand, who are a Fife-based charity, and they use the meeting centre model to enhance the lives of people living with dementia. It's a really simple model. It's a space for people to come and meet, talk about their lives, experiences, just to have a blather. Aimed at people living with dementia and their carers. And there's an activity always with these meeting centres. So Stand have been unfortunate enough to have me going along for the past few years to a few of they've now got, I believe, 8 or 9 meeting centres in the Kingdom of Fife, which is amazing considering they only started about 4 years ago. So I've been going and we started talking and changing the words of popular songs. And then we decided to write our own stuff because we could, we're a creative bunch and everyone was up for it. So we would pick a theme, or I would pick a theme or a piece of artwork and come in and say, right, here's what we're going to write about. Let's have a chat. And we would just talk. And it was great fun. It was filled with humour. A lot of Scottish slagging people off, just really natural conversation. And I would be there with my guitar and I would put it to music. So that was 2 years ago for the first album. We released it last year, but we started writing it 2 years ago. So we released Our Gift to You by Stand, which you can find online. So all the words and lyrics were written by people living with dementia. A couple of them were poems that I've actually made into music. And I just put it all to music. I was just a vessel for their creativity. It was brilliant. Such a great project. And now we're about to release our second album, which is unbelievable. A year on. With another meeting centre. So all these songs are stories from people's lives about, not necessarily about dementia, just great stories from folk that either made us laugh, made us cry. So we've put all them to music. So that'll be coming out at the end of September for that. But yeah, I work, as I say before, I'm a session musician. So I'm in the studio next week with Scottish artist Callum Beattie. We've been playing with him for a few years, and we're recording his third album, which will be very exciting. So I'll be doing that for the next few weeks. So after, when this goes out, we'll be done recording, hopefully, if all goes to plan. So yeah, that's where I really enjoy my job, when I get to be in the studio. I love that space. It's creative. It's like a playground. So you can just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, because you can take everything out when you're recording. You can spell like this, you'll be cutting out half of the rubbish that I've talked about. But that's what I love, the studio environment. I really enjoy it. So yeah, next few weeks I'll be in there. But the recording an album, it's a fab. It's amazing to see these songs, especially with the group in Fife. These songs with me and my guitar around a table, folks sort of humming along, and then a fully produced album, which we've performed a few times up and down Scotland at various events. And it's been on the radio, got on BBC Radio Scotland, which was amazing. And a couple of members from the charity came and spoke about their experience. And I think with that work, it's just raising awareness of dementia to an extent, but more raising, just reducing the stigma behind it, because a lot of people believe that after a diagnosis you can't really do anything, or you can't do something like songwriting, or painting, but it's so far from the truth. Everyone's experience is very different, and I've been very lucky to see that firsthand and be able to hopefully bring some joy to some fab people's lives. So they've definitely brought it to mine. So it was a really good experience. But you can hear them online. That's my plug.
Yeah.
Stand, Our Gift to You.
And I was thoroughly endorsed. So I didn't know all of that kind of story behind it. And I was listening to the album earlier today, and I could hear different influences as I was listening to the different tracks. And that makes so much sense now to understand that as the kind of drive and story behind it. The album's fantastic. So yeah, absolutely. Again, we'll put a link to it in the description after this, and I thoroughly recommend it to anyone who wants to check it out.
Thank you very much.
Not at all, not at all. So the last thing I want to ask you is, if we were to wind the clock back, and for you it's not that far, for some others it's a bit further, but if we were to wind the clock back to that day when you're standing in the hall, you've got your scroll and you're walking off the stage, if you were that fresh-faced graduate, what would the most important piece of advice that you would give to yourself looking back to that point?
I think I was going to say the hard work starts now, really, but I think it's got to be more positive. I think it did, yeah. Hard work starts now, but also just say yes to everything and just be glad to be able to say yes to everything. You know, as I say, I've been lucky with my career, but sometimes I come home from performing or whatever, and I'm a bit knackered, and I just need to remind myself to. Well, not remind myself, but I think I just need to enjoy what I've got ahead. And I've got so much time, and just to soak it in. I'm pretty bad, even going on holidays and things. I'm bad at taking photos. I just need to remind myself to be in the moment. Be like walking off stage. You've done 4 years of your degree. There's your moment. Soak that in, and then here's to the next 4, wherever it may take you. You know, you never know wherever it may take you. But also, it's okay to try different things. If you go to do something that's nothing to do with your degree, don't feel bad about it. I know people that, you know, they think, oh, I've wasted 4 years. You've absolutely not, because as we talked about, all these experiences and skills that we've gotten from uni, they will impact you later in life, but also onto the whatever else you try. So I think it's just, don't be scared to try something new, is what I would say to myself. Whether it be career wise or hobby, just anything.
Yeah.
Because I think once you have a degree, you think, some people think, oh, that's me, and I'm in this box of whatever this job is or career choice, but not at all. And it's never a waste of time. Never a waste of time, because you've absolutely learned something, even if you don't realize it at the time. You 100% have. And it might take you a while to realize what it is.
Yeah.
But you will. It would be impossible. I honestly believe that it'd be impossible not to get. Even if the thing is, don't do that again. let's not go. You've learned something from it, and I think that's all you can do in life.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. That whole kind of concept that there's no wasted experience. And as you say, it might even if it is just don't do that again. But it's part of what builds you and makes you who you are, and it all goes into whatever happens next, and it all drives us forward.
Absolutely, that's what life is, isn't it? And it's uni is just a great experience to meet all those folk who hopefully you'll be friends with years down the line, and I know I will be with a lot of them. So it was, yeah. Whilst I maybe didn't get my high top of the class marks, I don't care. It was great fun. I'm doing what I wanted to do, so it all worked out.
Perfect. Well, listen, I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate your time. So all that remains for me is just to say thanks, Gus, for sharing your experiences and your stories with us.
Oh, thank you, Dave, and good luck to anyone who's listening to this. And if you're struggling or whatever, just there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it will come, and it might not feel like it sometimes, but it always will. It always gets better if you're having a rough time, and just try and enjoy it as much as you can, because it's over before you know it.
But then
uni, that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was getting a bit morbid there.
And then a new door opens. Yeah, find the song
exactly,
that Fantastic. That's great. Listen, Gus, thanks again so much. Thanks again.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.